But let's move into Army of Darkness, 1992. A man is accidentally transported to 1300 AD, where he must battle an army of the dead and retrieve the Necronomicon so he can return home.
Glorious movie.
Directed by Sam Raimi, written by Sam Raimi and Ivan Raimi.
Ivan. I couldn't remember the other one.
Yeah. Cast highlight Bill Moseley as the Deadeye Captain. Now, I've watched this over and over. Is it Bill Moseley's voice?
I think, I've always heard that, and you can hear it if you listen and be like, that could be Bill Moseley, but
it sounds like Bruce Campbell.
It's not Bill Moseley doing. Well, it's not Evil Ash.
No, it's the Deadeye guy he's fighting at the end, the lead guy, right? He has a few lines, but it doesn't sound like Bill Moseley to me. It sounds like Bruce Campbell. So I'm wondering if Moseley did the lines or whatever, and then they needed to do audio over it or something, and they had Campbell come and do it. Because it does not sound like Bill Moseley. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's weird. Because I focused on that. I've always known that he was the Deadeye Captain. I'm always like...
Yeah, I think you can hear it if you say that's Bill Moseley. You wouldn't... I don't think you'd hear it and be like, that's Bill Moseley. But you find out, you can hear it and be like, that could be. I don't know why.
I didn't even know that.
I was listening.
I don't know why they lie about it. I guess I was just thought.
This movie is probably the most well-known of the franchise. I've met people who don't even realize that there's 2 movies previous to this, because they're not. This isn't called Evil Dead. So some of my favorite Ash moments are in this movie. The boomstick scene, the whole gag with the 3 Necronomicons, where his face gets all fucking drawn.
Yeah, this is totally where the franchise said this is entirely about Ash.
Yeah.
Evil Dead 2 was like, okay, we'll make this character as big as a part as the Woods and the Book and the Deadites.
This one's better than 2 in my opinion. Just because of Ash.
This one is Ash hitting his full stride.
The one-liners.
And they give him so many things. They give him the pit where he's fighting the Deadites.
Yeah, if you've only watched Ash vs. the Evil Dead and you want to go watch Ash, you've watched all these anyway. But if for some reason you're the rare person that watched that and loved Ash and didn't watch any of the movies, Army of Darkness is the one you want to watch because it is Ash's movie.
And they just fucking jump the shark right out the gate with him, and they have him link that chainsaw right into his arm just perfectly, like the hero that he is. But then they have where he's jumbling his words. He forgets the words to fucking pick the book up. Yeah,
this is where all his lines come in. You ain't leading shit, but Jack. You ain't leading, but Jack and shit, and Jack just left town. Yeah. Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. Almost everything he says in this is a memorable quote.
And the evil Ash when he gets the second head, and then that whole segment. Oh my god. Little goody 2 shoes. Little goody 2 shoes.
First you want to kiss me now or kill me now. You want to kiss me.
Might as well not start quoting.
Every
really
line.
could quote.
Every fucking line.
This movie, more than either of the previous films, sets the tone for all the... Did you play any of the games that were good? They had the first one on PlayStation that was pretty terrible.
The one that had the Raimi as the sidekick.
Oh, yeah?
He ran around with it.
I don't know. There was like
Boomstick
3 or...
Yeah, I played the first one on the...
That was good. I liked that one.
All Hail the King? Is that the first one?
The first one was just called Evil Dead, and it was on regular PlayStation.
Oh, no.
And it was so fucking hard. But the mood was good. Like, they had all the right moods. You were in that area, so you could walk around. And at that time...
It was on regular PlayStation?
Yeah, I knew it was coming out, and I saved up money, and I bought it. And it did feel like you were walking around that cabin.
Well, that's cool.
But, and at the time I was like, this is awesome. But anytime you'd encounter something, fighting it was so goddamn difficult. But the boomstick ones...
I don't think I knew that was even out.
Oh, yeah. You could probably play it online somewhere. I love, even the stop motion stuff in this movie is fun. It's probably the best that you can make stop motion look. It's the skeletons. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's wild. Like when you really think about all the stuff. I mean, the hymn that splits off of him scene, the hymn of the tiny little hymns. When it's wild.
Yeah.
Like it's not just it's really not a horror movie.
That's where to me, that's where it starts to lose me a little bit. Like it does get a little bit too silly for me in some parts.
Well, and
that part is really
it's
silly.
really not a horror movie. It's more of a fantasy.
Fantasy adventure kind of.
It's way more dark fantasy adventure, goofy.
It's really good.
Than horror. Because there are deadites in the beginning,
Like
and the lady at the end.
Goofiness.
But the whole middle section is really just like skeletons and weird shit. It's not. It's more sword and sorcery than anything.
Yeah, this is my least favorite of the trilogy. I think. I just would have liked them to keep it at the cabin, or at least in that vicinity, because in some of the games they keep you in that area. They'll have you branch out into there's a weird house full of like hillbilly people or whatever. They have all kinds of weird other side things that happen. But I'm still going to give this a 9 just because it's great. It's not my favorite, so I'm not going to give it a 10. That's the only reason I didn't give all these 10s, just because I wanted some delineation.
Well, there's different levels of 10s.
Well,
for me anyway.
The franchise is a 10. So
yeah, I don't have too much more to add. It's a 10. Again, some of the silliness starts to lose me a little bit, but Ash's character alone is just a 10 in this. I like the skeletons, and they could have done something at the cabin, I suppose. Still made it goofy, but just being back in that time and him being just like almost like a god just helps his character.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a 10 for me. Of the 3, I say it's my 3rd favorite. I don't like saying least because that's a connotation I don't think any of these movies should have, is as a least.
They're all the best.
But really, it's the same thing as the first one for me. Like, 2 is my cup of tea. 2 is right down my alley of personal taste. 1 is a 10 in straight horror, and this is a 10 in fantasy horror, and that genre. And it's why I love the whole franchise. It's why I loved what they did with 2, is because it opened it up to this. For me personally, I would rather have seen what they did, which was 1 as a horror movie, 2 as a horror comedy and camp, 3 as a fantasy. It's always sad to me. We got Ash vs. the Evil Dead, so that was awesome too. And they did just as many great things with that. But it was always sad for me that this movie didn't really take off, because this movie solidified it as you can take this world anywhere and buy it. I would buy it. I would buy, like in the comic books, when they do like Army of Darkness meets whatever, I would buy a Kurt Russell, Bruce Campbell team up, Army of Darkness in Little China. Like, I would buy that. I would really go to that movie, as over the top and ridiculous as the concept is. Suspension of disbelief is there. I'm in it. Or you could roll it back to a more serious horror movie at any point, and I would buy that. You could team him up with fucking Michael Myers or Freddy or Jason.
That's why they fucked up not putting him in Freddy vs. Jason.
You really kind of, and I know sword and sorcery isn't too far of a jump from sci-fi, and I think of some of the cheesy sci-fi movies Campbell's been in, and it's like you could easily have went a sci-fi route with Evil Dead. I think by turning it into an Ash vehicle, you set it up to where if this movie would have been popular, not only did it set it up as Ash being great, but it set it up as we can do whatever we want with it, and it's good. And I would have rather seen stuff like that than a bunch of 2s. I was glad Army of Darkness isn't at the cabin. I'm glad it went somewhere else. 2's my favorite. I don't want to see another 2. 1 is great horror. I don't need to see, like, that's the beautiful thing of this for me, is you can just continue to make 10s because you're not going to try to make a rehash of a different 10. And so that's why, and they took full advantage of it in Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I think they gave you the feel of everything they've ever done and more. So, but yeah, it's a great. It's the Raimi Bruce Campbell era of all of it. It's just it's such great storytelling, and they did all of them great. I give them all 10s.
There you go.
Sorry, I had to gush a little bit.
That's all
It's
right.
my favorite
That's
franchise.
what we're doing here. Let's get